I live in Los Angeles without a car, and last week I walked from my apartment in Palms to the Century City Mall to see Wicked. Before anyone says anything, yes, I do know that I could have taken the 3 or the 5 to the mall. I also could have gotten a ride with my roommate and his girlfriend who are meeting me at the movie, but I wanted the walk. I love the neighborhood this walk takes me through, plus it helps me justify the popcorn I shovel down during the film. And I know it looks dark, but I swear I left my apartment at 5 p.m. Also, yes, this outfit inspo was rich mom who likes to go on hot girl walks with her equally as rich suburban mom friends. This walk took me about an hour. I actually used to do this walk to and from work every day after I first quit driving. I figured this was a pretty fitting place to explain my history with driving and why I take public transportation everywhere. Now, I do really believe in the importance of public transportation to combat pollution and traffic. However, my love of the bus didn't exactly start because of such altruistic notions. It mostly started because I am a really, really bad driver. I got my learner's permit when I was 15 years old and was immediately terrible. We had a super steep driveway and I almost drove my dad and I off of it so many times. I took a driver's ed class as I approached 16, and this is probably the craziest part of this entire story, but I actually never ended up having to take a driver's test. My instructor had some sort of deal with the state where he could just give kids their licenses without them having to test. Looking back, this was absolutely insane and probably should not have happened, but I got my license and have still never taken a driver's test. Here's the part where I have to admit to my privileged upbringing. When I turned 16, my mom decided to go back to work, and so my parents bought me a car to drive my brother and I to school. It was a blue, used convertible punch buggy, completely impractical, but I loved it. Despite the classes and the practice, I was still a pretty bad driver. Sometimes when I would stop, my foot would just float off the brake and the car would inch forward until one of my friends yelled at me or another car honked. I was actually recently diagnosed with ADHD, and reflecting back on all of this with that in mind makes everything make a lot more sense. My first crash happened when I was 17 years old. I was meeting my best friend at a store near a mall that I had never been to, and this will age me, but I was using a printed out MapQuest instruction sheet to figure out where to go. When the 2 cars in front of me stopped for a red light, I did not. I slammed into the car in front of me, that car slammed into the car in front of it. The punch buggy was accordioned, but thankfully I was unharmed. The driver in front of me had just gotten out of back surgery not long before this, so he did have to go to the hospital, which I felt and I still feel really horrible about. Here, I'm going to take a quick break in the story just so that we can all admire this house's insane decorations. They always go all out. It is so impressive. Anyway, back to the story. My car insurance actually paid out quite well, so I took that money plus another gift from my parents, again with the privilege, and bought a brand new Nissan Juke. Why anyone thought it was a good idea for a 17-year-old who had just totaled a car to buy a brand new one, I have no idea. I drove that around without incident for the next year before handing it over to my brother when I left for UCLA. I got it back from him when it was his turn to leave for college, so my friends and I actually drove it across the country from Tennessee to Los Angeles the summer before my junior year. I drove that car around LA for another 3 years before my second accident. I was using Apple Maps to direct me home after a dinner meeting one night, and, well, have y'all ever seen the scene in The Office where Michael listens to his GPS and drives into a lake? I basically did that, but onto the freeway. Maps said to turn right onto the freeway when I wasn't expecting it, and rather than slow down appropriately or wait to U-turn and try again later, I just automatically turned my wheel right. I was going at way too high of a speed, and I spun out until I ended up on the embankment next to the freeway. This time, I thankfully didn't end up hitting any other vehicles, and I walked away with some minor cuts on my arms and chest. I still hadn't quite come to terms with the fact that I was just not a responsible enough driver to continue, so when my insurance offered me a rental car, I took them up on it. I then proceeded to bump that car into the wall of my apartment's garage. That was the point at which I realized I was done. Driving is a huge responsibility. Everyone who gets behind the wheel of a car holds not only their own lives, but the lives of everyone around them in their hands. I understand when people comment that I should just get a car, but that is not an option for me. Nor is it an option for so many people in this city, for so many different reasons. Good public transportation has to be available in order for us to function and flourish. LA's public transportation is certainly not perfect, but it's a huge benefit to my life, and I'd be lost without it. It took me a while to get used to the system here. As I said at the beginning of the video, I used to walk this route to and from work every day. My office was in one of the skyscrapers you see here, and I'd listen to a podcast or call my parents on my way in, change in the bathroom before starting, and then oftentimes I'd change back into those clothes at the end of the day and actually run home to get a workout in. It took around a year before I became comfortable taking the bus in LA. Nobody I knew ever used it, and it had a horrible reputation, which it still has. Like I've said in so many of my videos, that reputation is mostly undeserved. Yes, it takes longer than driving, yes, it's often dirty, and yes, sometimes it can be a little bit sketchy. And sometimes even a lot a bit sketchy. However, the buses and trains are mostly just filled with normal people trying to go about their day. The more people who use it, the more safe it'll be, and the more the city will feel motivated to keep improving it. I didn't end up using public transportation by choice, but as I've learned more about it, I've only become more passionate about how important it is to this city, and honestly, every city. Improving our transit and massively lessening our reliance on the single-car system is essential for the future of this planet, and I hope y'all will join me in using public transportation more often. Anyway, that was a brief history of my experience driving and, well, crashing. I hope that answered some of your questions about why I don't have a car and why I take public transportation in LA. This walk took almost exactly an hour, and I was right on time for my movie reservation. The Century City Mall was gorgeously decorated for the holidays, and it was so cute to see all the kids lined up to meet Santa on my way in. Popcorn was well deserved, and Wicked was amazing. I can't wait to see it again with my mom later this week.